What's happening, everybody? On today's show, the SEC championship game is upon us. We'll give you the latest on what Kirby Smart and Nick Saban had to say ahead of this matchup between Alabama and Georgia. Also, some more transfer portal news and much more. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And shout out to our everydayers checking us out every day. All right, let's jump into a point to discuss. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And the SEC championship game is this weekend, and it will be for many more years to come in Atlanta. The SEC announcing Thursday that the championship game will be held in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta through at least 2031. The agreement is an extension of the current contract that was set to expire in 2026. Atlanta has hosted the championship game every year since 1994. Saturday's game between Bama and Georgia will mark the 30th time Atlanta has hosted the SEC title game. Commissioner Greg Sankey said, "We look forward to continuing a very positive relationship with the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the Georgia World Congress Center as the home of our football championship." Speaking of SEC scheduling, well, the first look at the 2024 SEC football schedule will be revealed in just 2 weeks. December 13th, ESPN and the SEC Network will release a 2-hour special disclosing the 2024 SEC football schedule with all the dates and everything else. Now, we already know the opponents for next season. That was announced last summer during a deal on SEC Network. But, of course, there's a 1-year schedule of 8 conference games with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma to the conference. Every team required to play one Power 5 opponent as well. But, the other unusual thing is moving forward, the conference will eliminate division standings. There will no more be the SEC East or the SEC West. SEC Championship will just feature the 2 best teams with the best record at the end of the regular season. And that 2024 SEC Championship game, if you want to go ahead and circle your calendar, it will be December 7th, 2024 on ABC. Of course, the deal with SEC on CBS ending this season. This will be the last broadcast this Saturday. All right, let's jump into it. Nick Saban talking with the media yesterday ahead of this SEC championship game. He is making the case for the SEC not to get left out of the college football playoff. Of course, if Bama were to upset Georgia, the committee would be forced to decide between dropping Georgia out of the top 4 altogether or whether or not a win from Alabama would be big enough to bump the Tide up at least 4 spots. They're currently number 8. They'd have to get all the way up to number 4. Would that be enough? During Thursday's press conference, Saban reiterated his belief that the SEC is among the best conferences in the country, said, "I think the SEC is one of the best. I think Georgia is one of the best teams in the country. I think they're one of the best 4 teams in the country, and I think if we beat them, we'd be one of the best 4 teams in the country." Saban went on to say, with teams, there's a transformation that goes through the season. How are you playing right now? Where's your team right now? How good are you now? I think all those teams come into play with us. Also, I think it would be a disrespect to the SEC if there isn't an SEC representation in the Final Four. I do believe that. So, Nick Saban saying, don't you dare leave the SEC out of this one. And, again, still a weird kind of world where maybe the SEC could get 2 teams in. It's a great argument. I mean, if Georgia's been won all these weeks, how do you, let's say they lose a close game at the buzzer. How do you drop them out of the top 4? Suddenly they're not a top 4 team because they lost a close one in the SEC title game. On the flip side, if you're Bama, you knock off the number 1 team. Your lone loss was to Texas, and back in week 2, you're a much better team now. Is that not enough to say you're one of the 4 best teams in the country? So Going to be fascinating to see how this one plays out. Of course, on Monday's show, we'll be recapping all of it for you. But as far as this game, Nick Saban said that he has seen improvement all season long from his offensive line and Jalen Milroe. He said, if I had to pick one area where we improved the most, I would say it's offensively. The transformation of Jalen Milroe, a quarterback, to be this productive in terms of elevating his confidence and the confidence of the entire offense. The improvement in the offensive line has helped us to be better. I think the whole team has improved because of their confidence, and everybody's playing with more confidence. Saban also told reporters that running back Jace McClellan is listed as questionable for the SEC title game. He's day-to-day, and we'll see if he is able to go. But he re-aggravated an injury in that final drive against Auburn last weekend. On the other side of things, over Georgia, Kirby Smart praising Alabama safety Caleb Downs, telling reporters on Thursday, Downs does not play like a freshman, said he's instinctive, fearless. Alabama, of course, won Downs over Georgia in recruiting. Downs was a Georgia native. Kirby Smart said, look, he's fast, fearless. He's everything that he was in high school. Kirby Smart also commenting Thursday on the availability of a couple of injured players, tight end Brock Bowers, wide receiver Ladd McConkey, wide receiver Rara Thomas, and offensive lineman Tate Ratledge. Smart was very vague with his answer, said he doesn't know yet if all four will play. All four dealing with minor injuries, so none of them played against Georgia Tech last week. You got to think they were maybe doing a thing where they were keeping them out just to get them healthy for this one. All right, prediction time. We're going to hear from the guys from Locked On Bama and Locked On Bulldogs in a little bit. They will make their picks in this one, but how do I think this one plays out? Look, I can't go against Georgia. They've just been so good all season long. I think Bama keeps it close for the first half. I think Bama maybe even scores first, right? Georgia's done that with a lot of teams this year, giving up a team first touchdown, let them go right down the field and score, and then Georgia turns into Georgia. I think Georgia pulls away in the second half. I think Jalen Milroe and the Alabama offense struggle in the second half. I think Georgia pulls away. I've got Georgia winning 41-24. Yeah, don't freak out, Bama fans. The defense has been good, but I just think Georgia's going to pull away there in the second half. We'll see. We'll see what the guys at Locked On Bama and Locked On Bulldogs think here in just a little bit. All right, over at LSU, Jaden Daniels. He was named the winner of the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award on Thursday, presented to the top college quarterback annually. The other LSU player to win the Golden Arm was Joe Burrow in 2019. Max Duggan at TCU took it home a year ago. Over at Georgia, good news for them. Graham Mertz, their quarterback, will be coming back next season in Gainesville. It will be his final year of college football eligibility. Fifth-year senior. Was very good this year, led the SEC with 72.9% completion percentage. Going to be a tough schedule for Florida next year. They'll face Miami, Tennessee, LSU, Florida State, Ole Miss, A&M, Georgia. Oof, going to be rough. All right, over at Ole Miss, defensive lineman J.J. Pegues announced he's coming back for another season. He had 3.5 sacks this year, been at Ole Miss 2 seasons after he started his career as a freshman at Auburn as a tight end. Over at Kentucky, Andrew Phillips, one of their defensive backs, announced he is declaring for the NFL draft. Had played 4 seasons for the Wildcats, recorded 80 tackles, 9 pass breakups in his time in Lexington. Over at Mississippi State, Nathaniel Bookie Watson, he announced on social media he is heading to the NFL after several great seasons with the Bulldogs. He finished his senior year leading the SEC in tackles this year with 137 and leading the SEC in sacks with 10. And lastly, Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White. They are hiring former Auburn AD Alan Green. He will fill a role as a Vols senior deputy AD. Green served as Auburn's AD from 2018 to 2022. Went to Ole Miss, served at Ole Miss in a previous role. Also had a stint at Auburn as well. So best of luck to Alan Green over there at Tennessee now. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll let you hear what some of the guys at Locked On Bulldogs and Locked On Bama had to think about this matchup in the SEC. That's coming your way here in just a sec. First, I want to remind you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Look, FanDuel has been your spot to go for all of your action all season long. And when you look at FanDuel right now, they're offering new customers $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. That's if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including players, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Right now, Georgia is a 5.5-point favorite over Alabama over there at FanDuel. Alabama to win straight up is plus 172 on the money line. So go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season right. FanDuel, they are the official partner of the NFL. Go check them out today.
Now, a softball, a layup would be to say turnovers are going to be a key to this game. Sure. But actually, credit to Jalen Milroe here. You know, early, we all remember the Texas game, right? No. Do we remember the Texas game, Alabama? It was at home. It was a home game.
So they must have won that.
Well, Jalen Milroe, a little turnover prone in that game. And so he's really cleaned that up. Only six interceptions, kind of the rest came sprinkled throughout the season. You realize Alabama won the turnover battle 3-0 last week against Auburn. They won the turnover battle 3-0, and they won on a Hail Mary.
Huh.
So, wow. That's a weird stat. It's a really weird stat. Alabama's done a good job of not turning the ball over and forcing turnovers. Georgia hasn't really done a great job of forcing turnovers this year, but they have done a pretty good job of not turning the ball over. Obviously, last week against Georgia Tech, the ball was bouncing all kinds of weird. If either team gets into a problem with turnovers in this game, the other team's going to take advantage and they're going to win the game. It's not like that's an obvious key to the game, but we don't really need to discuss that one at length. I think a secondary key to the game is going to be the Georgia secondary's ability to not give up plays over the top. I think you mentioned Alabama's game plan and what it's going to be early on, and I do think that's what we're going to see from Alabama early on. And I think Alabama will have success early on, as everyone all season has had against Georgia early on. And then when Kirby and Glenn begin to make adjustments, and again, when you're matching wits between Tommy Rees and Glenn Schumann, I feel fairly good about which side I'm on. Do you, Alabama fan, feel fairly good about which side you're on in that battle of football acumen? When Glenn Schumann and company start to make adjustments and the Alabama offense begins to stall,
yes,
I believe, and the Georgia offense continues to have success, move the ball down the field, hopefully scoring touchdowns, but definitely scoring points. When that happens, I think you're going to see Alabama try to loosen up this defense and take some shots down the field, because they're going to realize that's the way that they're going to win this game. Georgia is obviously vulnerable in the secondary. There are spots of vulnerability, certainly at inside linebacker, but also in the secondary. And Alabama's got receivers. They have receivers that can potentially take advantage of those matchups. And Jalen Milroe has proven that when he can elude pressure, which he is often under because he plays in front of one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen, one of the most overrated offensive lines in the history of college football.
I was just, again, I only say this, Bama fan, because you mocked me so much. When I said that preseason, y'all got so heated at me. How's that go?
They're big and they're physical. Okay. And they can't pass block worth a darn.
Nope.
Like at all.
Nope.
So when Jalen Milroe is able to avoid pressure, which he is constantly under, but when he's able to avoid it and he spins the ball down the field, he can throw a really nice deep ball and he can put it on receivers, and they have guys that can go over the top. And so can Georgia's safeties stay disciplined in the run game?
See, there it is.
And disciplined in the pass game. There's a lot that's going to be talked about this week on CJ Allen and Wilson in the middle, the two freshman middle linebackers. I actually think much more important to Georgia's success on Saturday will be the play of two veterans, Javon Bullard and Malachi Starks. I think the way that those two guys play on Saturday will dictate the outcome of the game, because they are going to be asked to read, diagnose, and then make plays, whether it's plays on the QB run or scramble or the run game or the short and intermediate stuff, or whether it's plays over the top on the back end when Dalen Everett is playing chase behind his man. That's going to happen.
I'm not ready for it.
It's going to happen. And the question is, will 24 be in position to make a play, or won't he? That's the key, Georgia fans. You need these two safeties to play huge. They're really good players. Are they going to come up big in the biggest moment?
I have no problem about outside coverage. I really, really don't. Even we're talking about Dalen Everett. You're right. The safeties are huge. The inside linebackers are huge. The key to Georgia's defense is Milroe. You can get your hands on Milroe. Now, the dude's made of granite, and he's
that collision with the Auburn defender. It's not. I mean, first of all, the fact that Auburn defender stopped him is one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my entire life. But secondly, the fact that Milroe just popped up and walked off the field, I literally thought he's concussed at minimum.
Sincerely, the guy has a broken collarbone, right? He's got to have a crack in that thing. No, the man is made
of absolute granite. Yeah. Hitting him on the ground is ridiculous.
Okay. There it is. You can get to him, you can pressure him, and you can hit him. The problem for most teams is one hit doesn't do it. You need multiple hits. He's Kendall Milton playing quarterback is what it is. Okay. You got to bring him down. When you put a hand on him, he has to come down. And right now, our tackling ability has been less than stellar.
Less than ideal.
That's less than ideal. The key to the game is, when you get to him, can you bring him down? Can our safeties not have to play cleanup for you in the run game in the alley? Will our linebackers have free release to come try to tackle him? Will our safeties be allowed to cover that? Because Auburn knows. Okay. By the way, really quick, turnover margin. If Alabama fans said, hey, we win the turnover battle, we win the game. Georgia's currently 80th in the nation in turnover margin with a -1. So we haven't taken care of the ball and we haven't gotten the ball back. And we're perfect. So,
meanwhile, you had a not good Auburn team.
Not good.
And you were +3.
And barely eked out a miraculous thing.
So,
again, weird things happen. SEC championship, Georgia, Bama. I get it. But the narrative you're spinning is not correct. That's all we're saying. Do getting turnovers help you? Yes, they do. Limiting possessions helps.
Yeah.
Is it the end all be all this year for Georgia? No. We've won in spite of that. Okay. Here's the other key to the game. For Georgia offensively, they're not going to abandon the run. Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, which we're still getting word on Ladd, admittedly so. And guess what?
He's going to play.
He's going to play. That's why he sat out last week, Daniel. But do you know when you and I will both know that?
On Saturday at 3:00.
At 3:00 on Saturday.
Yeah.
Correct. That's when we will know when he plays or not. So stop speculating. I have no worry about our pass game. If we keep that run, again, this is if our run game is on point against Alabama's trenches. Again, if our offensive line is who we are, Kendall Milton, Dejon Edwards keep doing their thing. This game is, if we come out first drive and we're rolling in the run game, I am pouring bourbon early. because
spoiler alert, guys, don't let him talk to you this way. Don't let him insult you like this, Alabama fans. I would let a lot slide on this podcast. I will not. He's pouring bourbon early no matter what. Like no matter what's happening, it's already started well before kickoff. Like it's not, come on. Don't let him do that to you.
Jimmy, prediction time. And look, I've been telling everybody this. I go on a show every Wednesday out of Montgomery for Locked On Bama, and I told him the same thing. I'm going to tell y'all the same thing, that my head is screaming Georgia's going to win this game. In fact, I kind of – my head is saying, Luke, Georgia's going to win and they're going to cover. Now, it's only 6 points, so I mean if Georgia wins by a touchdown, they cover. I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to say Bama 27-26. I'm going to say it's a fabulous ball game. I'm going to say there are some fantastic moments littered throughout this thing. And I think it would be perfect if it were 27-26 because it would give the committee so much to consider, no matter what happens in the other games. Not only just, Alabama versus Oregon, Texas, and whoever else, but what about Georgia? Georgia should at least be in the consideration. They should at least be in the discussion. And I think it's going to be a whale of a ball game. And maybe I'm going with my gut because I did just get a free ticket. And I'm sort of like, I don't want to go there and watch us get beat, so I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to go another direction. And there'll be somebody on here who says, you're not a true Bama fan if you don't believe. It's not about believing. I'm always believe we're going to win. But it's about me trying to separate all this in my mind and saying, do I really think this team that has played with – that has done some fantastic things. This Bama team has done some fantastic things, and they've improved so much. But Georgia's kind of a machine right now. That's the only thing that bothers me. They're just a machine that just churns it out. They are the unwavering, unemotional squad that we used to be. They do joyless murder ball now. And we are kind of having more fun playing football. I love this aspect. I love this new personality we have. I do. It's been fun. Milroe is awesome, and I love watching him. But I'm saying we are prone to more mistakes now, and we cannot make mistakes against this crowd. But having said all that, Jimmy, my official prediction is Bama 27, Georgia 26.
Yeah, I had no idea what your score was until you just told us now. So I feel kind of weird with my score a little bit. Very similarly to how Luke feels. I'm going to also say that Alabama's going to win this game, but I'll also say Alabama's going to win this game in an upset. I think Georgia is the better football team, and Georgia and Alabama, if they played each other 10 times, Georgia might win more times than Alabama would. But I think this is going to be one of the 10 that goes the other way, and a little bit of some good breaks that maybe Alabama is due. And I like Alabama to win 28-27. Like Luke, I think it's going to be a classic. But ultimately, here's why Alabama will win in terms of an analysis. I like Alabama in the red zone in this game. I think Alabama scores touchdowns to win the game, and at least on 2 occasions that Georgia has driven in the red zone, Alabama will hold them to field goals, and that will be the difference in the game. At the end, Alabama will be down 27-21 because they held Georgia to a couple of field goals. There will be a touchdown away, and I don't know that we're going to get 2 straight weeks of a gravedigger level miracle. I don't know that it's going to take a miracle, but it may take a 2-minute drive to win the game. And I like Jalen Milroe delivering and Alabama winning 28-27 in one of the great wins of the Nick Saban era at Alabama.
I almost want to predict this because I think this would be just fabulous. That, first of all, like if we're just doing some funky player stuff, I'm going to say Christian Story or Malachi Moore. One of those, like somebody not Caleb Downs makes a pick, number one. The other thing I want to say is, given that both our projections are Alabama by 1 point, in my head, as soon as you said that, I was like, man, I hope it comes down to Alabama. Alabama scores late. Everybody's thinking Alabama kicked a field goal to tie it up, go to OT, and we go for 2 and get it. And we go for 2 and get it with we put a man in motion and Milroe straight up the middle.
when you're the underdog, I sort of like those kind of gambles. I do think, hey, we're legitimately an underdog here. Georgia now favored by 6 points. And when you're the underdog, you do things like go for 2. You run a little trickeration. There might be more Kendrick Law stuff that we haven't even seen yet. But yeah, I like how Luke's thinking on that there's going to be some tricks up Nick Saban's sleeve a little bit. Alabama doesn't normally have to go into a game thinking we got to fool anybody, but you might have to in this game. So Alabama and Tommy Rees can dig into their bag of tricks a little bit. How about somebody else throwing the ball? I'm not sure what kind of experience the backs have, but I think the wide receivers, a couple of them have played or spent some time at quarterback. Wouldn't be surprised maybe to see some fun Wildcat stuff with maybe Kendrick Law at Wildcat.
Let me tell you what's interesting. It made me think, I don't think we've got like an Ardarius Stewart, a guy who played quarterback at Fultondale back in his day. I don't know that we've got a guy playing receiver that may have done that.
Not off the top of my head, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kendrick Law saw some time. Kendrick's such a Swiss Army knife type player. And I'm not saying put Kendrick Law at Wildcat, let him whistle a ball 40 yards downfield. I'm just saying get Georgia a little confused, move players around. Hey, you can line up Milroe at wide receiver and he can run a route and catch a ball. Does anybody doubt that? You can also put Milroe at running back and Kendrick Law. Just changing things up and trying to confuse Georgia a little bit in terms of where they're you can call it eye candy. I hate that term that's used all the time. I don't like it, but what you can do, and the whole point of eye candy is getting Georgia looking at the wrong thing. It's like a magic trick. You get them looking at this spot, but the real action's happening in another spot.
When you said Alabama digging its bag of tricks, I mean, we're not known. We've done a few flea flickers. I remember one against A&M on the road, one at Auburn on the road. I mean, we've done some flea flicker stuff. I do remember, I think it was Marquise Mays that threw a pass. Who threw the pass at LSU that was intercepted? Who threw that pass in the game of the century, 2011? I think that was Mays.
That might have been Mays threw the ball that Michael Williams didn't come down with because their safety Reed caught it. Yeah, I think it might have been Mays. My
point is, we don't do a lot of trick plays, and this team doing a trick play would scare me. And I immediately remembered a joke from The Simpsons where there was a very harsh critic talking about different restaurants she had went to, and she said her review on Baskin Robbins was, why do 31 flavors when you can't get vanilla right? And my I always thought that was funny, but my thing on why do a trick play when we have enough trouble just remembering where the line of scrimmage is. Oh, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm kind of worried about a trick play. I would love to do one. It would be fun to think we could pull it off, but
it doesn't even have to be over the top. How about just plays where Milroe appears to be a runner? He tried to do this, but he crossed the line of scrimmage twice. How about Milroe appears to be a runner, but in fact is going to throw the ball? Like he takes the snap and he rolls out right with the ball tucked like he's going to run it, but instead throws the ball.
I had that thought on what you said with Kendrick Law. He comes in motion. We fake the pop pass. Milroe rolls to the right, and then you hit Kendrick Law on the wheel. But now the problem with that is it takes a long time. Georgia ain't going to give you a long time.
Yeah, any long developing play is probably an issue against Georgia. And again, they'll blow stuff up. I think our general point, though, isn't, hey, this specific trick play or this specific trick play. It's just Alabama's not an underdog very often. So I don't mind seeing Alabama do underdog things like go for 2, go for it on 4th and 1. Alabama's only gone for it on 4th down 4 times all year. Going for it on 4th and 1, going for 2.
Wait a minute, we've only gone for it 4th down how many times?
I think 4 times all year.
And 2 of them were in Iron Bowl?
Correct. I believe that's correct.
Which is also ironic because if you remember, we had to go for it on 4th down when we did the kick 6 and couldn't get it.
Correct. So things like that, I think, are underdog type things. How about a fake kick or a fake punt? Again, underdog type things. We've seen Saban do it before, and when he's done it before, it's often been in a big game when Alabama's behind, or maybe when Alabama feels like, hey, it's time to pull out all the stops, and this is one of those times.
Well, here's the problem. if it doesn't work, it's going to give Kirby Smart fake punt 2018 vibes, you know?
Oh, yeah. But hey, that's fine. I mean, again, you got to don't leave anything on the table, right? I mean, this is it. This is your shot.
You're in the playoffs now. You're in the playoffs now. Now, you just don't know that you're going to advance.
I would run Milroe a little more than we have. And he ran the ball 18 times. One thing frustrates me a little bit, I've seen repeated, gosh, how many runs did Milroe pass up on last Saturday when he had a chance? Jalen Milroe ran the ball on just about 1/3 of all snaps. So, and then people, he needs to run the ball more. What are we trying to do? Earl Campbell, this guy? I mean, at some point, he can't run the ball every snap. Or
Earl Campbell couldn't have made that 4th and 31 pass, I can tell you that.
That's true. That's true, too.